Hey gang, Ronin here, and welcome on back to the Retrocade, and welcome to another episode of Sports Saturday, where we hit the Wayback Machine to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation and explore a classic sports game. So for this week, I figured because it's kind of the lull in the regular sports calendar, I'd go back and visit one of my favorite arcade ports of all time, and it goes all the way back to 1983. So it is a 40-year-old game that we are celebrating today by playing Konami's Track and Field. Now, you may know this game, depending on where you are in the world, as Hyper Olympics was what it was originally called when it was unveiled at the Tokyo Amusement Show back in September of 1983. But this game was made by Konami, and it was ported out to multiple platforms in the long course of its life. I'm playing the Nintendo Entertainment System version, obviously, and I will, this one was ported to the NES in 1987, and how you always knew at an arcade that this cabinet was in the building was you could always hear the following sound wafting somewhere through the narrow labyrinthine corridors, and it was... Because in order to play this game, you had to play on 3 sets of buttons that were in the console. There was no joystick or anything of the sort. It was literally the first button mashing game that a lot of us ever played. So what we're going to do is over the course of the next half an hour is we're just going to have fun playing this game. And I will tell you right now that this is a really, really easy game to play on an emulator, because every emulator you have nowadays has a turbo button on it. And all you have to do in order to be able to do something like run the 100-yard dash is hold the A button down. So, in order to be able to move on to each event, you see how there is a qualify score, and then you have your first, second, or third try. So for like the 100-yard dash, all I had to do was run faster than 16 seconds, and I got it. And with the long jump, it's something similar, where you have to run down the runway and make sure you can do more than 5 meters, 50 inches. But you've got to be able to jump before that white line. If you run too long, it's a foul and your attempt doesn't count. So because nowadays you can be able to essentially cheat the game without cheating the game, it is one you can play in under half an hour easily. And it does, I will freely admit, ease off the difficulty curve more than somewhat. Because all you have to do is be able to time everything correctly as you are going through each event. I didn't even have to jump that last time. And I set the world record in the 110-meter hurdles. Now, the first 4 events in this game are pretty easy, although I just fouled there because I was too close to the line and I went right over it. It's when you get to the 5th event and you have to do clay skeet shooting is far and away the most difficult event in this game. Because you can't just hold the button down. It is all about timing and making sure you can keep a streak going. But this was easily, along with the original Donkey Kong and Zaxxon and the original Punch-Out!, my favorite arcade games growing up as a kid. And the reason why they came out with it was, again, in Japan and outside the US, it was called Hyper Olympics. So it was to coincide with the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, California. Which, for my generation, come on. Okay. Was the first Olympics that a lot of us ever saw. Now you need 2,400 to qualify for this event, and clearly my first attempt was not that good. And it's all about getting the timing down, so as the ducks are in the square, you can start picking them off. But you've got to be able to get it. You got to get the sequence just right. I don't think I'm going to get this one. Nope. I'm going to do worse on this one than I did on the first one. And with that, it's game over. Because it's an arcade port, you don't get multiple lives. You don't get more than a few attempts. And that one, skeet shooting has always been the bane of my existence. But if you can get through it, the remaining three events, the triple jump, archery, and high jump, are just as easy as the 100-yard dash and the first four events. So I ran that one in under 9 seconds, which by modern standards would be put me on the short list for a steroid special. But as a kid of about 6, 7, 8 years old, when this game came out in the arcades, I mean, it was right up my street. It was fun. It was challenging, and again, while I'm not huge into like Olympic type sports, it was the presentation of it that made it appealing. You know, Konami did make a sequel to this game, easily enough, called Track and Field 2, that came out to coincide with the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul. And that is one of the few games where the sequel, to me, is even better than the original. It's got more events. They're not nearly as complicated as far as having, like, the skeet shooting is not a cinch in that one either, but it's a little bit easier to handle. But you also get events like kayaking and taekwondo and fencing. Gymnastics is in that one. So they definitely spread it out. And the graphics are much better as well because Konami had really 5 years to develop what their overall package was going to be, as opposed to just porting this one over. Oh, we got a foul on that one. So when you're doing events like this little, in the lower left-hand corner, that little degree counter is the launch angle for whatever it is that you are trying to throw, or your jump angle for, like, the long jump. And you're trying to, the ideal point on that is 45 degrees. If you go 45 to 50... and you can max out the power on it, then you are in really good shape. Now, come on, Ronin. When you get this streak going, it's easy to start, but keeping the momentum going is really tough. I really gotta focus here. Nope, we're not gonna get this one either. Best you can get is 1,700. Alright, well, we'll try it again because we're only 11 minutes in here, and I definitely want to get through the last 3. Actually, what I'll do is we'll start from the triple jump this time. And again, you're trying to get to as close to 45 degrees on each jump as possible. But the other thing is that when you're doing the triple jump is that if you jump too far on your second leap and go into the pit, you commit a foul. Ooh, I just got that on the line. But I set the world record by going 21-10. So now with archery, we've got to take into account what the wind gauge will be. And it's 6 degrees. Ooh, and I whiffed on the first one. And this is one where the turbo isn't necessarily your friend either. But obviously, the closer you get to the bullseye, the higher the score you're going to have, and therefore your overall total is going to be better. Now, getting a true bullseye is a little bit tough in this, because right there, that should have been one, but your first go isn't always the best one. And because the wind is blowing to my left, there we go. Straight up bullseye. Make it 2. That'll be helpful. But I was always better with archery than I was with skeet shooting. Because it just wasn't... I wasn't able to handle the speed variance between the ducks the further along in that you went. If you can get it right, it actually is really, really easy. But we've gotten enough to qualify and move on. And we picked up another bullseye. That's helpful. But really, in this one, it's a matter of being around the bullseye as much as you can with your 8 arrows, and then you're pretty much all set. Like, I'm already at 2,400. I could pretty much miss with the last 2, and I would have been just fine. Now, they did say in Hyper Olympics that instead of doing the skeet shooting, they had the hammer throw, which I would have much rather had. They put the hammer throw into track and field 2. Whoop, as I ran right square into the mat, which is not what you want to do. Oh, I'm way too early. Am I even going to hit the mat? I did, but at least I qualified. So now, once you get through all 8 events, you recycle back through to the 100-meter dash. So like Spy Hunter, which we did for WTF Wednesday 2 weeks ago, there is no real way to end this game. It's all about getting the highest score. And in the arcade game, if I remember it right, if you got 100,000 points, you essentially got another attempt. So you got, in layman's terms, a free life. Alright, let's see if I can get this one right here. There we go. 43 degrees. And we sail into running the hurdles. So, I mean, if you're looking for a game that has a lot of depth of play and, you know, things of that nature, this isn't the game for you. But it's a game I like to pull out and play when I just want to have some fun and enjoy a little bit of nostalgia. And anything that is nostalgic is always going to be a little bit more interesting. Ooh, that wasn't good. But I will recoup, and I will still... Oh, no, I won't get there. And actually, I just barely qualified. So not only did I not win the race, but I barely qualified. That could have been a lot more uglier than it has. I don't remember the last time I would have not qualified running the hurdles. Because it's not a hard thing to do. You just run and then hit up to jump. But if you time it wrong and you run into the hurdles, you see that you lose time and you lose position. In a lot of ways, this game was a precursor to what Konami would excel at over its time supplying games for the NES. And if you've watched my other Sports Saturday games where we played Double Dribble and Blades of Steel specifically, I made the argument, and I stand by it, that a big part of what Konami did in their success in the early days of the NES was by giving you a presentation of a game. Am I going to be able to hit a single pigeon in this? There we go. And 1100. But giving you the sort of presentation that would later be duplicated by EA. Oh! I was one off. And I even got that blue one. The blue one gave me 1,000 points, which was critical. And we didn't get it. So we got the high score. I think what we'll do is we'll try one more time. So we'll start from the beginning and see if we cannot finally conquer that blasted skeet shooting. And we come to the tape, and we are at 989. Which is much more realistic for what modern track runners run nowadays. I think, if I remember right, Usain Bolt's modern record is somewhere in that vicinity of 9:89, if not considerably faster. Okay, we moved on at 10.35 meters. The other thing I loved about playing this on the arcade cabinet was it had a synthetic, or a synthesized voice. I shouldn't say synthetic voice. That every time you completed an attempt, it would tell you what your result was. So for like the last one, it would say your distance 11.15 meters. Which the kids back in the early 80s was really cool, because it was still that point in time where personal computers were very, very new and very, very exciting technology. We didn't have supercomputers in our pockets. And having the ability to get stuff that gave you glimpses of what would become the norm later on was really, really cool. You know, I mean, I am dating myself there, and this is not a get off my virtual lawn sort of thing. It was, to me, when I think about it now and what we found as gamers as things that were interesting parts of the amusement that we enjoyed 40 years ago, and how much evolution has gone into everything to do with video games nowadays. I mean, it is staggering. It's truly staggering in the best possible way. You know, and I have gotten comments from people who have started checking out the channel, and I'm extremely appreciative of everybody who has done so. Of somebody asked me, you know, a couple of weeks back of, well, Ronin, you're a real stickler for old games. Do you play any new games? And actually, yes, I do. To that point, hey, we qualified! I'll be darned, we actually qualified. Okay, now I can carry on. So, I can muck up these next two and not care. But truth be told, my birthday was not too long ago, and for my birthday, I finally made the investment and got a PlayStation 5. And I did it because there's a lot of newer games I'm looking to play, and also because my PlayStation 4 was about 10 years old, and it was starting to show its age a little bit. It was an original Series PS4. I mean, it still works like a tank, but it works like a tank that occasionally overheats. Especially when I play games like No Man's Sky, which is a game that I absolutely adore. I know I'm in the relative minority of people who love that game, but, you know, I have played No Man's Sky. I'm a massive fan of racing games like Gran Turismo. I've played Horizon Zero Dawn. I very much want to play Horizon Forbidden West. I think Horizon Zero Dawn was one of my most favorite games of the last 5 years in terms of its presentation, its mechanics, and its story. And to that respect, I also have a PlayStation 3. I have a PlayStation 2 that I play, obviously, because I have an emulator here. It's a non-modded PS2, so I can only play American games on it. But I very much like modern video games as much as I like playing classic games. It's just that I don't, unfortunately, have the means by which to hook up and stream my PS5 or my PS4 originally to do streaming. A friend of mine had gotten me an HD Elgato video card to do streaming on for Christmas a couple years back. And unfortunately, my PC was not powerful enough to handle it. It had a 10-year-old motherboard and a 10-year-old processor and a 10-year-old graphics card in it. And while it worked, it ran so slowly that unless you wanted to see somebody try and stream at like 4 FPS, I mean, you'd be literally like watching paint dry, and who wants to see that? So when I upgraded my PC, and I've got now a Ryzen 7700X chip in it, and it's got a 3060 graphics card. I mean, that may not mean much to most people, but it's more than powerful enough to be able to handle doing all the streaming I want to do. When I went to plug in my PS4 and plug in that graphics card to do streaming with, it wouldn't recognize the card. And I'll be damned if I can tell you why. I went through every piece of FAQ and manuals and driver updates and all that stuff that I could find, and it just would not recognize it. So, in that regard, if I want to be able to do more modern games, I need to go back to square one and get new kit to be able to do that with. Because for whatever reason, the Elgato HD60S just didn't want to do it. So, at some point, does that mean I wouldn't be against the idea of streaming more modern games? I just need the right setup to do so. That's all. And in the meantime, I'm more than happy to load up my emulators and create content based on what I've got out of the thousands and thousands of classic video games that currently make up my emulation collection. So, it's 6 in one, half dozen in the other, and that's perfectly fine for me. So, well, now that I've delivered when it counted, and we're all the way through to this final event with the high jump, see if we can actually set the world record here. So we've already qualified as I run headlong into the mat again. Are we going to get over the bar? Yes, we will. And then we go right back to the 100-meter dash. So that, everybody, is the original track and field, or Hyper Olympics, depending on where you were in the world in 1983, ported over for the Nintendo Entertainment System by Konami in 1987. So if you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have, best way to show it, as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. We will have Suckerpunch Sunday coming up tomorrow, where we will feature a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. I also am in the process of putting together my next playthrough, which I'm hoping to get started, if not this next week, the following week at the very, very latest. There will be a slight delay in part for two reasons. One, I was on vacation this week, although it wasn't a vacation. I spent this entire week sick off my butt, which is not worth going into, but it ended up being not as nearly as much fun time off as I had hoped. And then I have to get back to work next week, which means I'm going to be super busy Monday through Friday. But I do have a game picked out. I'm putting together all the particulars on it now, so keep an eye out. That should be coming up really, really soon. Also, help spread the word about our channel by subscribing to us on Instagram at Ronin's Retrocade. We post new content there every day, and help spread the word about us so we can reach our goal of 100 subscribers as soon as we can. That way we unlock YouTube's customization algorithm and make this channel bigger and better. And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or MegaDrive, SNK, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on Instagram. It could be any game you want. And as always, my name is Ronin. It's been great to spend this Saturday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, Happy Mother's Day to all the lady gamers out there, and we will see you tomorrow for Sucker Punch Sunday. Bye!